So here's the book, nothing special. La 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 la. Okay, so this is a slightly edited chapter. Sometimes the selection is set in the early to mid 70s and focuses on my sister with Down syndrome, our mother, and me. So my sister Christine has Down syndrome. We're not even a year apart. And my mother was in her mid 20s when she had us. And so it's around like probably like 1971 till about 1977 or so that this focuses on. And yes, I'm balancing this on a pillow, so it's really a smart idea to do that. So keep fixing it. Sorry. Holy rollers. Before I was told that God had a name or that I should be afraid, we rested our knees on the bottom stair. Our mother flipped the light switch up, squeezed between my sister and me, and we prayed to the round hallway light shining above us. As a trinity, we recited one Our Father and one Hail Mary. Once God was named, I began to cross my eyes to make him shatter into points like a distant star. By creating God in my image, as isolated and fragmented, it became easier to worship him. At the end of my first year of kindergarten, the teacher suggested I needed to stay back because she felt I was immature. Truthfully, I don't know if she was more concerned about that or my well-documented defiance streak. On both my sisters and my early report cards, our teachers' comments reveal how much we shared that temperament. We both interrupted other students, were bossy to other students and teachers, did not follow directions, and did not like to be told what to do. We learned this from our mother, who wasn't going to allow me to be held back. She informed the principal, "Everyone knows that teacher is a drunk who puts her favorite student, Alexander Martin, in charge so she can hit the sauce." For first grade, my mother enrolled me in St. Edward's Catholic School, where my habits of interrupting others and talking during church did not go over well with the nuns, and they'd sit me in the corner or next to them at Mass. I'd have rather had my sister's school experience. Her Down syndrome meant she went to special schools. She had educators who praised and encouraged her. She never had to deal with daily injections of Catholic dogma, iconography, and authoritarianism. She had no nuns, no crucifixes displayed, no First Friday masses, no uniforms, no angry priests, and no stations of the cross with their cheery captions like, "Jesus is condemned to death," "Jesus is nailed to the cross," "Jesus dies on the cross." Our local Catholic church, made of stone with high Gothic ceilings, has a cross-shaped interior. Hovering in the air before the altar, there used to be a life-size crucifix with a very bloody Jesus attached. Bloody thorns, bloody forehead, bloody palms, bloody side, and bloody feet. Despite this display of grotesqueness, weekly Mass had the same convivial atmosphere as visits to our local grocery store. As soon as we arrived in church, Chris and I said hi to our aunts, uncles, cousins, and then once we settled into our pew, we'd watch to see how long it took our Uncle Ricky's head to drop forward for his morning nap. Sometimes there'd be a folk mass featuring a guitar player instead of an organist. While singing songs about love, our mom pinched my sister and me on the thighs to stop us from making faces, waving at people we knew, and asking if it was over yet. While at Catholic school, I worried I'd be called by God to marry Jesus like the Sisters of Mercy had been. I felt that being a nun was one of the few occupations available to young women. I relaxed a bit once I saw The Sound of Music because I figured that, like Fraulein Maria, I could have it all. Start off as a free-spirited singing nun, live in a beautiful mansion, and never have to go through labor because I'd marry a captain with 7 children. When I was 7, I asked my mother where babies came from, and she informed me that God made women pregnant. Based on what happened between the Blessed Virgin Mary and the angel Gabriel, I prayed God wouldn't knock me up before I met my captain. At St. Edward's, I had 5 boy cousins who were also, they were in different grades than I was, and I was irritated that they got to be altar boys. By 5th grade, I wanted to prove myself, and as a budding feminist, to establish that girls could do anything boys could. Influenced by the folk masses, I convinced Allie, a short, scrappy female classmate, that we should ask to be altar girls. In 1976, we became the first in our parish, and perhaps the church itself, since it wasn't fully sanctioned until 1994. I suspect our priest only allowed this because it was Lent and there were extra masses. We weren't official servers and we couldn't distribute the Eucharist, but I was thrilled to do some of the readings and ring the bells. It was mostly about the bells. In sixth grade, though, I took my desire for equality too far. The boys in our class got to go outside during school and help clear the snow from the playground. So I told my teacher, girls should be able to help too. Imagine how popular I was when my female classmates and I and our flimsy plaid jumpers were sent to the convent to chip ice off the stairs using spatulas. Imagine the icy stares I got from my angry, freezing, should be sisters in arms who'd never wanted or asked for this kind of egalitarianism. Even with these acts of relative boldness, I was training myself to hang back from my peers at times, to listen and watch from afar. Inspired by Harriet the Spy, I began to keep a diary. Like Harriet, I used an ordinary notebook. Here's an excerpt. March 18th. Sorry I haven't written in a while. Chris and me watched Little House. Mary went blind. I hope I don't go blind, but if I do, I think I know my house pretty well. March 19th. I got to tell you of my experiment I made up. I took a jar and put a toothpick in. I closed it tight to see if it'll rise. I'll report to you each day. March 20th. Went to confession and did the stations. Dad was drunk at dinner. Toothpick didn't rise. March 21st. Toothpick didn't rise. Chris and me watched Boy in the Plastic Bubble. I hope I don't end up in a plastic bubble. Allie said damn at recess. I thought she was a nice kid. March 22nd. I won a contest. I won $5 for first prize in poetry. Jane Martin can kiss my rear and go to hell. Only hell was crossed off and replaced with another town. Forgot to check toothpick. March 23rd. Toothpick didn't rise. Got my prize money. I'm proud. My cousin said, bet I could beat you next year. I said, go ahead and try. March 24th. Toothpick didn't rise, but the air turned into vapor, and maybe that's a discovery. Chris and me went to Scouts and I earned my first aid badge. Took a bath. Don't have rabies for sure. I have no idea what made me imagine a toothpick could rise, but it probably had to do with the resurrection of Christ. The summer after fifth grade, I got my first taste of public school when Chris and I attended a program staffed by university students. I wasn't doing well in math, mostly word problems, and needed help. At summer school, I was encouraged to write more and joined a club that compiled the weekly newspaper that published my first story. Chris attended too, but we only interacted when we were carpooled there and back. I'm not even sure what she did. For me, it was a welcome break from the nuns. Instead of sitting in alphabetical order in rows, we clustered in sections of 4 connected desks. Instead of singing hymns about Salve Regina, we listened to Stevie Wonder. Instead of doing the Stations of the Cross, we did yoga. The only carryover from Catholic school was my tattling on a girl who submitted a poem to the paper that she'd plagiarized from A Child's Garden of Verses. At the talent show in August, my sister's class performed the song, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, while I, for reasons that might be related to the sound of music, recited Walt Whitman's Oh Captain, My Captain. But oh, heart, 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 oh, the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen, cold, and dead. Dark, formal, and bloody, I'm sure it was a real crowd pleaser and scared the crap out of the second and first graders. Few of the small handful of girls in my Catholic school class ever bonded, and by sixth grade, I really wanted to have a best friend and a group of my own friends outside my family. I'm not sure Chris felt the need in the same way. She was so busy with school and Scouts. She had swimming, Special Olympics, and all the activities our region's recreation director organized. She didn't have a lot of time to pine for more. My chance to branch out finally came when, after a 20-year closure, our town's roller rink reopened. The rink was a large rectangular hall with polished wooden floors above the offices of the Motor Speedway. Depending on which generation you were from, The property was known as the track, the fairgrounds, the races, the speedway, or the rink. Mom took Chris and me there every Saturday. We arrived early for skating lessons and then stuck around for free skate. As soon as we walked in, my sister would whine, "Is it time for my chips and soda?" And our mother would answer, "You haven't even put on your skates yet." I was one of the only preteens there with a mother and sibling in tow. And since all the kids knew my mom, who was the assistant to the school nurse in town, I couldn't pretend to be there alone. She knew them as well as their medical histories. Each week, she offered me a health briefing. "Stay away from that chunky boy Quinn by the snack bar. Sent him home yesterday with lice. And that girl Dominique doing the limbo, scabies." Without being able to cling to friends or cousins who skated, I wasn't sure at first how to separate myself from my mom and sister. But each week I got better at blending in with the other kids. My need to be more independent was part of normal development, but my occasional embarrassment of them and knowledge that I was giving up my part of the triangle complicated that. I myself longed to be an incongruous combination of ignored and revered. I wanted to blend in, but also be center stage, not for my association with them, but because of my own merits. I'd been taught that God was always watching me, and I feared that because he could see my embarrassment around my family, he'd punish me. I also knew my mother might yell at me for ignoring them. My sister occasionally made it difficult not to be uncomfortable. Getting a boy to like me was starting to be my main objective in life. Sometimes, when I was near some guy, Chris reached up and put her arm around his shoulders and said something like, "My sister likes you, huh? You're a good looking guy." Imagine the word mortified in all caps flashing across my forehead like a CNN breaking news. I often observed the kids sitting on benches in cool groups, especially the kids who were going out. I'd sometimes come around a corner near the bathroom and jackpot, I'd happen upon a couple making out. To me, public kissing was an implicitly sanctioned form of pornography. One time I got caught watching, and the boy looked at me and said, "What the hell are you looking at, loser?" I was so tempted to say, "Someone who's going to hell for swearing," but that wouldn't have helped me be any cooler. Chris and I were normally shielded from any and all things related to physical intimacy, except soap operas. My Aunt Barbara once told me that in their early days together, our parents had been affectionate, but in our childhood, Chris and I never saw them touch. Hence came my voyeuristic tendency to study and learn from strangers necking. Though the confused thrill of it sometimes instilled more terror than longing, I knew I'd eventually want to be piece of the action, get a piece of the action, and like a good scout, I had to be prepared. I felt worse when the dreaded couples skate was announced. As the lights dimmed, I pushed myself as close to the wall as possible until I was almost out of sight. I gazed longingly at all the partners holding hands, including my mother and sister. Even though I'd been diligently avoiding them, when the two passed by, my embarrassment shifted to envy. They'd glide in unison, crossing one foot in front of the other to negotiate the turns. It was the first thing the three of us had learned in skating lessons, and they did it perfectly together. Thank you.